Just had church. Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you, Christina. Woo! Woo! I am changing. You are changing. We are changing. Do you feel it? Feel that change happening in our lives. We're here at Unity to support you. That's our role as ministers. We're here to support you in your personal transformation in the change process that is always happening as Spirit works in and through and as your life. And it's a blessing to have that opportunity to support you in that way. But change doesn't always show up in the way that we want it to show up, does it? Wish it could show up a little easier, a little more the way I plan, right? Well, I want to share with you a story of 3 clergy members who wanted to see who was best at inspiring personal transformation. So they were a minister, a priest, and a rabbi. A priest, a minister, and a rabbi go to the woods, and they were looking to find a bear to convert. Okay, they're each going to find a bear to convert and compare notes. So later they all get together, and the priest says, "When I found the bear, I read to him from the catechism, and I sprinkled him with holy water. Next week is his first Holy Communion." And the minister says, "I found a bear by the stream, and I preached God's holy word. The bear was so mesmerized that he let me baptize him." And they both look down at the rabbi, who's lying on a gurney in a body cast, and the rabbi says, "Looking back, I think I shouldn't have started with the circumcision." So not all approaches work well for every bear among us. So my talk tonight is, what's next? The transformational power of change. And we can all look back in our lives and see how through change, through challenges, we have grown spiritually. We have transformed. We have stretched out of our comfort zone into revealing more of our own God nature. And I'm amazed at how many changes I've experienced as I've looked back on my life just the past 3 years. I went from being a student to being an ordained minister. I went from living at Unity Village to going back to New York to moving to Houston. I became an associate minister here, then I became a mother. And think about all the changes that have happened in your life in the past 3 years. And think about all the changes happening in our church, and think Mindy's life this week. My birthday. It's 42, okay, so 42, that's my birthday. And you're all familiar with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, but then then they go, well, what's the question? So I'm still in the question, too. Okay, so maybe you feel like we're all on a spiritual fast track. Do you feel that? That things are moving really quickly, that a lot is changing in life. There are a lot of things coming at us, a lot of opportunities to transform. We're really moving and developing a lot faster than our primitive ancestors would have. Life is moving more quickly than ever. And when we look back, we can see how we called in these outer changes, right? We're not a victim of our lives. It's not like we didn't participate in this. We affirmed it, right? We prayed it, we manifested it, we called it in to our experience. And we know as we're on a spiritual path, we all are, so we on a spiritual path know that we make choices that encourage us to express our inner potential. So they're going to stretch us. They're going to get us out of our comfort zone into really practicing the truth that we know. And I recognize that with every change that's happened in my life, that I'm required to call more on my trust in God, to listen more deeply to my inner guidance, to forgive myself and to forgive others more regularly for my own peace, for a peace in my life, to be more open and to be more compassionate. And so looking back, wow, the transformation looks great. Like, wow, I love when people say like, oh, you've grown so much since you've been here. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that you see that in me. But I have to say it didn't always feel good at the time, okay? I struggled through a lot of the changes that have happened in my life. I had resistance to change. I've judged other people and myself. And so I really had to trust that Spirit was at work despite the appearances and allow myself to be with the change. And when we look back on our changes, we can celebrate. Like that song is a celebration. I am changing. I made it through. I'm better today than I was yesterday. I've grown. I've transformed. Yet when we look at the changes ahead of us, we can get excited. We go, hey, what's next? I prayed this in. I affirm this. It's coming. You get excited. And then the mind kicks in. Oh, everything's going to change. What's next? Oh, man. Oh, boy. And we get concerned, and we can drop into fear and into dread. Oh, man, what's next? I can't take it. It's too much change. And that could be our process. This has been my process sometimes. We get excited because we see the changes happening, but then we feel the discomfort and we want to put on the brakes. Whoa, 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 whoa. I like things the way that they are. It's an issue of control. Our egos want to control everything. Oh, that's not exactly the way I pictured it. I want to control it. Our psyches kind of shut the door on change. You want to keep things the same. But that's not how Spirit works, right? We've got to have changes in our lives in order to experience personal transformation, in order to bring out the best in us. Got to get out of our comfort zone. So we can never really go back to what we think is comfortable. We've got to move forward. Because our souls long for growth and expansion, right? We came to this planet, to this experience, because we like to grow. We like challenges. We like variety and changes. Greek philosopher Heraclitus is quoted as saying, change is the only constant in life. It's the only constant in life. Scripture, Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, for everything there's a season and a time for every matter under heaven. We live in a changing universe. Just look at nature. Look at the seasons. Well, we don't have, what do we have, 2 seasons here in Houston, but most places have 4, right? We have hot and less hot, or flood season. Is that a season? I don't know. But caterpillar becomes a butterfly. A tadpole becomes a frog. Now, I've heard a lot of talks of the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, but I want to share with you about the tadpole becoming a frog because I think that's pretty cool, and I don't know if you heard it, but you're going to hear it again. So the process in which a tadpole becomes a frog is called metamorphosis, and it's an amazing transformation. So these slides are broken down, the metamorphosis process. So you can see that this is an egg mass that was laid by a frog. Each of those black dots are made up of a bunch of cells that eventually grow into a tadpole. Depending on the species, these egg masses can be made up of several hundred eggs. So think about your divine ideas, hundreds of them getting ready to be birthed and go out, right? The next phase is the tadpole. So within a few days, the eggs develop into tadpoles. The tadpoles live completely underwater. After a few weeks, there's a hormone in the tadpole's thyroid gland that initiates metamorphosis. Over a 24-hour period, the tadpole develops into a frog. It's pretty fast. This means that almost every organ has to change so the tadpole can go from living underwater to living on land as an adult frog. In this picture, you can see that the tadpole has started to grow some hind legs. After the hind legs have started to form, a pair of front legs will begin to develop and the tail will start to disappear. You might also notice that the tadpole has started to form a frog-like face. The tadpole's skull is made out of cartilage, the same stuff in our nose and ears. But during metamorphosis, the cartilage is replaced with bone. And this is called a froglet. When the tadpole reaches the froglet stage, it is almost a full adult. At this point, the tadpole's gills have disappeared and its lungs have enlarged. This means that it's ready to leave the water and to live on land. Once its tail disappears, you can see a little tail still there, it will become an adult frog. And there's the adult frog. Fully grown frog. Frogs go through a lot to get to this phase, and a lot of the changes are not seen. The tadpole's horny teeth, which were once used to tear up plants, disappear, and tongue muscles develop to catch insects. The tadpole's large intestine, which was important for digesting algae in plants, shrinks to suit the frog's new meat-eating diet. The metamorphosis of the frog is quite a process, amazing how it happens in just a day. And when the frog is in this process, the frog is considered at his most vulnerable. And when we look back, we can see the frog's transformation, but it's not always evident in the present to the frog, is it? The frog's just thinking about what it needs to do to adapt, to get food and to get around. It's constantly adjusting to its new conditions. So when we look back on our lives like the frog in its life cycle, we can see all of our transformation, but sometimes it can seem like it's all behind us. But our transformation is not limited to our past experiences. It's ever unfolding. It's what we could call the present of the present. Every time I've had an outer change, I've had a great inner change. It's just a part of that adjustment process. And the changes have produced conditions of transformation. There's a difference between us and frogs, right? We're not the same as frogs. We're multidimensional beings. A frog is not able to be self-reflective. A frog is instinctual. It's just doing its frog thing. It's not self-aware. We can tend to think of ourselves as human beings having a human experience, and as human beings, we can be sick and poor and unhappy, and many people are, fortunately. We can get caught up in a situation and the suffering, and we can forget the spiritual dimension of life. But the truth is, there's only one power, there's only one presence in the universe and in our life, and we call that what? God, right? We are each an expression of God. As spiritual beings, we know we can't be sick and poor and unhappy, because in truth, we are whole. We are wholeness itself. So if we know that is our spiritual truth, why do we suffer from the discomfort of change? Well, the problem is that we embrace facts as reality, but they're not. Facts are not reality. Appearance, because they can change. Appearances change, facts can change. But our one true reality that is unchanging is what? God. God doesn't change. Suffering is a result of our unawareness of our spiritual nature. Remember, Jesus said, you are gods. We're gods in disguise, but we forgot. So we call in the change, and we can feel discomfort. We put on the brakes, and that causes our suffering. It's our resistance that's causing our suffering. I mean, I couldn't stop being a mom. Once I got pregnant, it was kind of like, yeah, it's going to happen. Even though, like, whoa, oh my gosh, I didn't really think through this. I used to have a lot of personal time, and now I didn't realize how much personal time I had until I had a child. So, but it's you just going, you're in the change. But I could resist it. I could say, oh, I don't want to, I miss being, not having a child, and that kind of thing. I could resist it, or I kind of embrace it, embrace the good, embrace the transformation. So the key is when we're in the change and we're feeling the resistance to take our foot off the brakes. We're going to take our foot off the brakes, take our foot off the resistance, and trust. And just be open, be receptive. Trust that this is what you asked for, even though it's showing up differently than you planned. Part of this discomfort that we feel is the death of the old. In John 12:24, Jesus said to his disciples, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. So we've got to die to the old ways in order to transform and to grow. I've grieved things in my life that have changed. I grieved the loss of being a student. I loved being a student, but it was time to move on from that and to be a minister. I grieved a change in my career and a new career because there are just things I had to let go of in order to embrace the new. I grieved that loss of independence that I had before I had a child. but now there's something new, there's something greater. We always move forth into that which is greater. But we have to honor the grieving process. We have to allow it. It's a natural part of our human experience. The Apostle Paul was constantly dealing with unexpected change. As you read his letters, you can see that constant change. He told the church at Corinth, I die every day. He was constantly releasing old ways and opening up to new experiences of being. And this is a requirement of our spiritual path. There's no growth without a letting go of the old. Yet we fear death, and this very fear of death, ironically, is a fear of life itself. We must be willing to die daily. To resist these deaths is to resist life itself. With death comes rebirth into new life. Wonderful Unity teacher, Eric Butterworth, minister and writer, he wrote, on the human level of appearances, it seems that changes can lead to loss and injustice. But beyond the appearance is a level of experience where God's law of adjustment is always active, turning losses into gains, revealing the truth that even if you intended it for evil, God intends it for good. So however it's showing up, know that God's intention for that change is good, that God in you is intending it for good. See that good. So I have a few tools I want to share with you that I've discovered of how to deal with change, and I hope that they're helpful to you. The first one is to allow tears to be shed that need to be shed. Allow that grieving process. It's part of the change. It's natural. We want to honor our humanity, honor our feelings. And it's the natural way that our bodies are set up to relieve stress. It's a beautiful thing. It's set up in the divine intelligence of our system. If you had a loss, use the tools that work for you. Go to therapy. Find this, give yourself the space to heal. Get a massage. Take good care of yourself. It's a time to really nurture yourself and be good to yourself as you're moving through the change process. The second one is to be gentle with yourself, and part of that is self-forgiveness. I know I've been really hard on myself sometimes when there's a lot of change because I want to be perfect at it. I have this perfectionist thing I've shared with you guys. I want to do everything great, but things can be messy, right? When you're in change, you don't always know what to do. You're changing, you're transforming. So it's letting go of that self-criticism, trusting and forgiving yourself, forgiving and remembering to love yourself through the process. The third tool is to ask for what you need. People don't always know what's going on just because you feel like a lot of change is happening. Ask for what you need. Be receptive to receive help. And we have wonderful ways to support you here in Unity. We've got Unity friends here to pray with you after the service and all of our services. We have counselors and ministers here to support you in counseling. We have prayer circles after the Wednesday night service, classes, all kinds of ways to support you. Ask for what you need. If you don't find it, ask us and we'll help you to find the resource that you need to move through the change process. And the fourth tool I'll share with you first. Unity author Ernest Wilson, wonderful author, wrote, "Times of change are times of fearfulness and times of opportunity. Which they are for you depends on your attitude toward them." Fearfulness or opportunity. So watch your attitude towards the change and be aware of prejudgment. We can get into fear and say, oh, change bad, and just name it bad, start looking for things that are wrong with it. I mean, we make up stories all the time to try to understand our lives, so why not make up a good one? Why not make up a better one? Right? Make up a better one. Use the power of your divine imagination to let go of what you think that might be for something better. Just give the change a chance to reveal the good that is present there, and it will. And so the last tool I want to share with you comes through a wonderful story that's in what I think is the quintessential book in Unity for Change. It's by Reverend Robert Brumman, and it's called Finding Yourself in Transition. So I recommend that book to you if you're looking for some more support in the change process. And the story comes from the Hasidic tradition. It's the story of Rabbi Isaac. He's the son of Rabbi Yekel in Krakow. Isaac was a very pious man and a very poor man. He was so poor that he lived in a one-room house with only a dirt floor. One night he dreamed that he was in the great city of Prague, many miles away. And in the dream, he walked throughout the streets of the city, admiring the beautiful buildings. Eventually, he came to the edge of the city where he saw a bridge, and beyond the bridge, a great palace. And so he walked across the bridge, began to dig, whereupon he discovered a buried chest. He opened the chest, and it was filled with gold, diamonds, and treasures of every sort. When this dream was repeated the third time, Isaac was convinced that it was a sign from God. So he grabbed a shovel and he began his journey to the city of Prague. After many days of walking, he was very tired and his feet were sore. Finally, he reached the city. Although he'd never been to this city before, he recognized many of the buildings from his dream. And sure enough, he discovered the bridge and beyond it, the palace. He crossed the bridge and began to dig. And soon, his shovel struck something. It was the buried chest. With trembling hands and a pounding heart, he opened the chest, and he found that it was empty. Broken-hearted as never before, Isaac began to weep and then sob uncontrollably. Suddenly, he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was a young man wearing the suit of a palace guard. He said, "What happened, old man? Why are you crying?" Isaac recounted his story. Upon hearing the tale, the young man laughed with scorn. He said, "You're a foolish old man to put faith in dreams. Dreams are nonsense. I myself have had many foolish dreams, and I pay no attention to any of them. Why, just last night I had a dream about a poor rabbi who was digging a hole in the middle of the dirt floor of his home, and there he found a buried chest filled with treasure. Now, doesn't that show you how foolish dreams are?" Immediately, Isaac was on his feet. With renewed energy, he commenced the long journey back to his home, and there he discovered the priceless treasure buried within the place where he had lived in poverty for most of his life. We tend to look for treasures anywhere and everywhere around us in life, don't we? But the true treasures, the gifts of spirit, those are found within, and those are always with us. They're already here. They're already here. So when you ask yourself, what's next? Or, what's next? Remember that inherent in every change that's before you is the treasure you seek. It is your very spiritual unfoldment, the revealing of God in your life and in you. And so let's affirm together. I ride the waves of change with faith.
I ride the waves of change with faith.
I have everything I need within me.
I have everything I need within me.
I trust in God and I am at peace.
I trust in God and I am at peace.
And so it is. God bless you.